What's your response, Taehyung? Is it true? Over here, look this way. Did Jungkook know this would come out? The first camera flash cracked through the terminal like a gunshot. Taehyung didn't see it coming. 1 second he was walking, head slightly bowed beneath a black cap, earbuds in but no music playing. The next, the air exploded with voices, shutters firing in ruthless bursts, light stabbing his vision from every direction. The polished floor reflected the chaos back at him, multiplying it, trapping him inside a blinding corridor of glass and judgment. Taehyung, are the photos real? His foot stopped mid-step. His hand tightened around the strap of his carry-on, knuckles whitening. Behind him, the automatic doors hissed shut, sealing off escape. The airport smelled like burnt coffee and disinfectant, metal and recycled air, all of it clogging his lungs at once. For a brief, terrifying moment, the world narrowed to one thing: the red recording light hovering inches from his face. He had faced cameras his entire adult life. Stadiums, award shows, crowds chanting his name like prayer or accusation. But this was different. This wasn't staged. This wasn't controlled. This wasn't something he had agreed to. Are these from last month? Were you hiding your relationship with Jungkook? Did the company know? Taehyung's eyes flickered, not toward the reporters but toward his reflection in the tall glass wall beside them. The man staring back looked unfamiliar, pale, rigid, eyes too sharp, too exposed for someone who had slept barely 3 hours. A man carrying something fragile that had never been meant for public consumption. Somewhere above the noise, airport announcements droned in indifferent English and Korean. Boarding calls, delays, life continuing as if his hadn't just split open under fluorescent lights. He remembered another airport years ago, quieter, smaller, a time when anonymity had wrapped around him like armor instead of suffocating him. Back then, panic attacks were private things. Back then, fear didn't trend. A tablet shoved itself into his vision. On the screen, grainy photos taken through tinted glass. 2 figures walking close together in a dim parking structure. One unmistakably Jungkook, broad shoulders, familiar posture. The other unmistakably Taehyung, head tilted, mouth curved in a laugh caught mid-moment. Too close to deny, too intimate to explain away. A hand, Jungkook's, resting briefly on Taehyung's wrist. Taehyung's stomach dropped. So they had found those. His mind didn't race with damage control or strategy. It went backward instead, to late-night studio sessions where the lights were low and the air smelled like dust and warm electronics. To conversations spoken softly, carefully, about pressure and loneliness, and the strange isolation of being adored by millions and truly known by almost no one. What he had felt for Jungkook hadn't been reckless. It had been careful to the point of restraint. Built slowly, quietly, like something both of them understood the world would never allow them to hold loudly. Taehyung, are you denying it? He counted his breaths without meaning to. 4 in, hold, 6 out. It was an old habit, one he'd learned when panic threatened to crack him open in places cameras never reached. His fear wasn't of scandal. Not really. It was of becoming a headline stripped of context, of having something human flattened into speculation and monetized outrage, of losing control over a story he had spent years protecting, not for image, but for survival. His phone vibrated once in his pocket. He didn't need to look. Jungkook never sent more than one message when things went wrong. Taehyung lifted his chin. Another habit surfaced then, forged in darker moments. When cornered, he didn't run. He observed. He noticed the tremor in one reporter's hand, the hunger in another's eyes, the way the crowd leaned forward as a single organism, breathing anticipation. He noticed his own pulse slowing. "I have nothing to say," he said at last. His voice came out steady, softer than expected. "Not here." The words didn't silence the chaos, but they shifted it. Murmurs rippled outward. Some flashes slowed, recalibrating as if waiting for more. Silence, he knew, could be louder than denial. Security finally pushed through, uniforms forming a wall of blue. As they guided him away, Taehyung felt the weight of the moment settle deeper into his chest. This wasn't the end of exposure. It was the beginning of something far more dangerous. In the private lounge, the air was cooler. The light was dimmer, kinder. Taehyung sank into a chair, fingers curling into the fabric of his coat. His hands were steady, but only because he hadn't let them shake yet. Inside his bag was a small sketchbook, edges worn soft, drawings, lyrics, thoughts he never shared. He pressed his fingers against it like a talisman. His phone buzzed again. This time he looked. "Are you safe, Jungkook?" Safe was a complicated word. Their connection had never been careless. It had been shaped by mutual understanding of what the world demanded from them. But care didn't erase risk. Love, Taehyung had learned, wasn't loud. It was persistent. He typed slowly. "I am now." He didn't add anything else. Some things deserved to be said without lenses watching. Outside, reporters still waited, hungry for fragments. Inside, Taehyung grounded himself, inhaled, and stood. Whatever came next, he would not disappear. He had spent too long shrinking himself to survive. Fear didn't get to write his ending anymore. The lounge door closed behind him, and the silence felt heavier than the chaos he'd left behind. Taehyung stood by the window, watching planes crawl across the wet tarmac like wounded animals. His reflection hovered over the glass, fractured by rain. For the first time since the cameras had swarmed him, his hands began to shake. The quiet didn't last. It never did. Taehyung was still standing by the window when a soft knock sounded at the lounge door. Not the aggressive pounding of reporters, but something controlled, professional, careful. "Mr. Kim," a staff member said through the door, "your manager is here, and another guest." Taehyung closed his eyes. He didn't need to ask who the other guest was. "Let them in," he said. The door opened, and the atmosphere shifted instantly. His manager stepped in first, heels sharp against the polished floor, tablet clutched so tightly her knuckles had gone white. Her expression was a volatile mix of panic and fury, the kind she usually reserved for crises that threatened entire careers. Behind her came Jungkook. Cap pulled low, mask half lowered, shoulders tense as if he were bracing for impact. No entourage, no staff, just him. For a moment, no one spoke. Then the room detonated. "Do you have any idea what you've done?" his manager snapped, slamming the tablet onto the table hard enough to rattle the glass. "Every outlet has those photos, international ones. They're calling it a secret relationship, a cover-up, a betrayal of trust." "It wasn't a cover-up," Taehyung said quietly. She spun toward him. "That's what you're correcting, not the fact that you were seen with the most scrutinized idol on the planet." Jungkook lifted his head. His eyes met Taehyung's, sharp with guilt and something darker. Anger not at him, but at the world that had cornered them. "He's not alone in this," Jungkook said. His voice was calm, but it carried weight. "If you're assigning blame, include me." The manager laughed, sharp and humorless. "Oh, trust me, you're already included. Your label is losing their minds. So is mine. I've ignored 17 calls in the last 10 minutes. Taehyung sank into a chair. His legs suddenly felt hollow. "Yelling won't undo it," he said. "No," she shot back, "but silence will bury you." That landed harder than the shouting. Taehyung flinched before he could stop himself. Jungkook noticed. "Careful," Jungkook said. "He's not a product." The manager stared at him. "Neither are you, but the world treats you like one, and pretending otherwise is naive." Rain intensified outside, drumming against the glass like a countdown. Taehyung rubbed his temples. "What are our options?" She inhaled sharply, forcing herself to slow down. Option 1. Deny everything. Say the photos are misleading. Two colleagues, coincidence. Jungkook's jaw tightened. Option 2, she continued. Say nothing and wait for the next scandal to bury this one. And option 3, Taehyung asked. She hesitated. You tell the truth, or at least a version of it. Jungkook exhaled slowly. That version destroys us. Or frees you, she countered. Silence settled thick and suffocating. Taehyung's mind slipped backward to another night. Studio lights dim, the floor cold beneath his back. Jungkook sitting beside him, knees drawn up. Talking quietly about exhaustion, about how fame could feel like a room with no exits. About how being seen didn't always mean being understood. I won't lie, Taehyung said suddenly. Both of them turned toward him. I won't deny something that mattered, he continued, voice steady despite the tremor under his skin. I've spent my life editing myself to be palatable. I'm done. His manager's eyes widened. Think carefully. This industry doesn't forgive honesty. Jungkook looked at him. You don't have to do this. I know, Taehyung said, but I want to. Jungkook stepped closer, lowering his voice. If you speak, they'll dissect everything, every glance between us. They'll make you the problem. They already are, Taehyung replied. The tablet buzzed again. His manager glanced down and swore, there's more. She turned the screen toward them. New photos, clearer, taken from inside a car. Jungkook's hand wrapped loosely around Taehyung's wrist. Taehyung laughing, unguarded, leaning toward him. Something cracked in Taehyung's chest. That moment had been real, private, safe. Now it was evidence. They're spinning it, the manager said. Either you used him or he used you. Pick your poison. Jungkook's voice dropped. Who leaked these? She hesitated. We don't know yet, but someone wanted this out, someone close. The word betrayal hung in the air. Taehyung swallowed, faces flashing through his mind. Trust was fragile. He had given it sparingly. I'll speak, he said again, firmer. A written statement by me. She opened her mouth to argue, then stopped, studied him as if seeing him clearly for the first time. You understand this could change everything. Yes, Taehyung said, that's the point. Jungkook watched him, conflict carved into every line of his face. If you do this, I won't hide. Taehyung met his gaze. I never asked you to. Thunder rolled outside. Hours later, alone again, Taehyung sat with his sketchbook open, pen hovering over the page. Words came slowly at first, then faster. He wrote about connection without spectacle, about respect without ownership, about two people finding safety and understanding. He didn't write Jungkook's name. When dawn bled into the sky, pale and uncertain, he read the statement twice and sent it. His phone buzzed almost immediately. Whatever happens, I'm here, Jungkook. Taehyung closed his eyes, pressing the phone to his chest. For the first time since the airport, tears came, not from fear, from release. The world would react, it always did. But he had chosen his truth. And in doing so, he had chosen himself. The statement went live at exactly 8 in the morning. Within seconds, the world seemed to inhale sharply. Taehyung sat on the edge of his bed, laptop open, the pale blue glow washing over his face. Outside, Seoul was waking up, delivery trucks groaning down wet streets, footsteps echoing in apartment corridors, a city unaware that it was about to argue with itself all day long. His phone began to vibrate, then vibrate again, then it didn't stop. He didn't look. The words were out there now, not defensive, not apologetic, calm, human, dangerous in their restraint. He had written them with shaking hands but a steady heart, and now they no longer belonged to him. A knock came at the door. Come in, he said. His manager entered without her usual sharp confidence. Her coat was half-buttoned, hair hastily tied back, eyes locked on her phone like it might explode. "You broke the internet," she said flatly. Taehyung exhaled. "That bad?" "That divided," she corrected. "Some are calling you brave, others are calling you manipulative, a distraction, a liability. You're trending in 5 languages." He finally picked up his phone. Notifications blurred together. Support, hate, analysis threads dissecting every sentence he'd written like scripture. "What about him?" Taehyung asked quietly. She hesitated. "He hasn't released anything yet. His label is deliberating." Taehyung nodded. He'd expected that. The machine always moved slower when the stakes were higher. As if summoned by thought alone, his phone lit up. "They want me silent, Jungkook." Taehyung stared at the message, chest tightening. 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. "I want to speak." Before Taehyung could reply, the doorbell rang, urgent, insistent. He opened the door and froze. Jungkook stood there. No security, no staff, cap pulled low, eyes raw and unfiltered. He looked like someone who hadn't slept and didn't care if the world saw it. His manager swore under her breath. "Are you insane?" she snapped. "Probably," Jungkook said, stepping inside anyway. "But I needed to see him." Taehyung didn't move at first. Seeing Jungkook like this, unguarded, shaken, hit harder than the airport ever had. "You shouldn't be here," Taehyung said, though the words lacked force. "I know," Jungkook replied, "but I couldn't sit in a conference room while they debated my humanity." The manager threw up her hands. "I'll be in the kitchen pretending I don't hear this." When they were alone, silence settled like dust. "You read it," Jungkook said. Taehyung nodded. "I meant every word." "I know," Jungkook said softly. "That's why it scares them." He stepped closer but didn't touch, respecting the invisible line they'd always kept. "They think I've lost control," Jungkook continued, "that I've been compromised." Taehyung's eyes flashed. "Because you cared." "Because I cared," Jungkook echoed, "and because you didn't disappear when it got hard." Taehyung looked away. "I'm not your weakness." "I never said you were," Jungkook replied. "You're my reminder." The words landed heavy between them. A sudden shout outside made them both flinch. Through the window, Taehyung saw figures gathering at the end of the street, cameras already raised. "They followed you," Taehyung whispered. Jungkook cursed. "I was careful." "They always are," Taehyung said. The manager reappeared pale. "They're setting up live feeds. This is escalating." Jungkook straightened, resolve hardened across his face. "Then I'll end it." Taehyung turned sharply. "What do you mean?" "I'll speak," Jungkook said. "Now." "You can't just." "I can," Jungkook cut in, "and I will." Taehyung stepped in front of him. "If you do this impulsively, they'll destroy you." "They're already trying," Jungkook replied. "At least this way I choose the terms." Taehyung searched his face, seeing the familiar stubborn fire beneath the calm. "This isn't just about us," Taehyung said. "It's about your members, your fans." "And it's about you," Jungkook shot back. "They're tearing you apart to protect me. I won't allow that." Something tightened painfully in Taehyung's chest. The manager sighed, defeated. "If you're doing this, we do it properly. Controlled interview. Sit down." Jungkook shook his head. "No filters." Fear spiked in Taehyung's chest, but beneath it, something like pride bloomed. Hours later, studio lights burned unforgivingly bright. Jungkook sat alone across from the interviewer, posture straight, hands clasped tightly enough for his knuckles to whiten. "Why now?" the interviewer asked. "Why speak at all?" Jungkook didn't hesitate. "Because silence was hurting someone I care about." The next question cut sharper. "Are you confirming a romantic relationship with Kim Taehyung?" Jungkook inhaled slowly. "I'm confirming that he is not a scandal," he said. "He is a person, and he deserves respect." Across the city, Taehyung watched the broadcast, heart pounding. They'll say you admitted it, his manager muttered. Let them, Taehyung whispered. On screen, Jungkook continued, eyes steady, voice calm but burning. The industry profits from mystery, but it punishes honesty. I won't participate in that anymore. Are you afraid of the consequences? The interviewer pressed. Jungkook's lips curved into a faint, sad smile. I've lived with fear for years. This isn't the worst version of it. When the broadcast ended, the backlash was immediate and explosive. Praise collided with outrage. Comment sections burned. Think pieces multiplied like wildfire. Taehyung's phone rang. Jungkook, he answered immediately. I'm sorry, Jungkook said, for making it louder. Taehyung smiled through tears. You made it truer. There was a pause. I don't regret you, Jungkook said quietly. Taehyung closed his eyes. Neither do I. That night, as the city buzzed with arguments and accusations, Taehyung stood by his window again. This time, he didn't feel frozen. He felt exposed, yes, but also seen. And for the first time in his life, he understood something he'd never dared to believe before. Survival didn't always mean hiding. Sometimes it meant standing in the light and refusing to shrink, even when the world demanded it. The storm hadn't passed, but he was no longer alone inside it. The morning after the interview felt heavier than the night it had shattered. Taehyung woke to noise that didn't belong inside a dream. At first it was distant, muffled, like waves breaking somewhere far away. Then it sharpened into voices, chanting. His name, tangled with Jungkook, lifted and dropped in uneven rhythm. He sat up, heart racing. The sound was real. Barefoot he crossed the apartment, the floor cold beneath his skin, and pulled the curtain back just enough to see. They were already there. Fans, anti-fans, reporters, protesters holding signs that read "Protect Jungkook" and others that screamed betrayal, cameras perched on tripods, phones raised like weapons. The street had transformed into a battlefield of belief overnight. His phone rang instantly, as if sensing his awareness. Do not go outside, his manager said without greeting. Do not open the door, don't even stand near the windows. I hear them, Taehyung replied quietly. Security is on the way, we're relocating you. Relocating. Running again. This isn't running, she snapped, as if reading his thoughts. This is survival. Taehyung didn't answer. He ended the call and rested his forehead against the glass. The chanting surged louder, feeding on itself. Accusations collided with praise. Traitor, muse, distraction, savior. The contradictions burned. His phone buzzed again. Are you okay, Jungkook? They're outside, Taehyung typed back. Seconds passed. I'm coming. Taehyung's breath caught. Don't, he typed quickly. They already know where I am. It doesn't matter anymore, Jungkook replied. That terrified him most, the inevitability, the way privacy evaporated once the line was crossed. A sharp knock slammed against the door. Open up, a voice shouted, just a few questions. Another knock, harder. Do you regret it, Taehyung? His pulse spiked. He backed away instinctively, palms pressing to his ears, but the words still seeped through the walls, invasive and cruel. Then another sound cut through the chaos. Engines deep, authoritative. Security vans. Shouting erupted as guards pushed through the crowd. Someone screamed his name, not in anger but desperation. Don't let them break you. That one hurt the most. Minutes later, Taehyung was escorted through a back exit, hoodie pulled low, head down. Flashes still found him, piercing through gaps, but he kept moving. Inside the van, darkness closed around him like a cocoon. Only then did his body betray him. His hands began to shake uncontrollably. His chest felt too tight, air refusing to settle. Breathe, a guard murmured, slow. Taehyung obeyed, 4 in, hold, 6 out. His phone buzzed. Where are they taking you, Jungkook? Somewhere safe, apparently. I hate that word. Taehyung almost laughed. Me too. They relocated him to a quiet building outside the city, designed to disappear. The silence inside was oppressive, amplifying every thought until it echoed. Hours passed. Muted news played on screens. Analysts argued. Psychologists speculated. Commentators questioned his intentions with thinly veiled disdain. He knew what he was doing, one said. This kind of exposure doesn't happen by accident. Taehyung hurled a cushion at the screen. Turn it off, he snapped. His manager complied, rubbing her temples. This is getting ugly. It always was, Taehyung said. She studied him. Do you regret it? He didn't hesitate. No. The certainty surprised even him. Her phone pinged. The color drained from her face. What? Taehyung demanded. They released something else. His stomach dropped. What else? She hesitated. Audio. The room tilted. Of what? He whispered. A studio recording your voice, Jungkook. Ice crawled up his spine. That's impossible. She pressed play. Static, then laughter. His own soft, unguarded. Jungkook's voice followed, low and intimate, saying his name the way he only ever did when no one else was around. The clip cut before anything explicit. It didn't matter. The intimacy was undeniable. That was private, Taehyung said, voice hollow. Yes, she replied grimly, and someone sold it. Betrayal sliced deeper than the cameras ever had. His phone rang. Jungkook, he answered immediately. I know, Jungkook said. His voice was tight, controlled, barely holding together. I'm so sorry. This isn't your fault, Taehyung said, anger burning hot beneath his fear. Someone violated us. A pause. I feel like I failed you, Jungkook said quietly. Taehyung swallowed hard. You didn't, you stood with me. They want another statement, Jungkook continued. My label is panicking. No more statements, Taehyung said. Silence. What? Jungkook asked. They want us reacting, Taehyung said. Explaining, bleeding on command, I'm done. Another pause. If we stop, Jungkook said carefully, they'll control the narrative. Taehyung looked at his reflection in the dark screen, exhausted, older but clear. Then we change what the narrative is about, he said. This isn't a scandal, it's a violation. Jungkook exhaled slowly. If we do this, there's no going back. I already crossed the line, Taehyung replied. I'm not turning back now. The next day, they appeared together for the first time. Not at an airport, not in hiding. A small press room, 2 chairs, 2 microphones. No shouting, no ambush. The room buzzed with anticipation, cameras poised like predators waiting for blood. Taehyung spoke first. What was leaked was not a scandal, he said, voice steady despite the tremor in his hands. It was theft. A murmur rippled through the room. Jungkook leaned forward. Intimacy is not a crime, exploiting it is. Questions flew immediately. Accusations, demands. Taehyung raised his hand. You are not entitled to our private moments, he said. Being human is not a provocation. A reporter scoffed. Then why put yourselves in this position? Jungkook's gaze hardened. Existing as human beings is not a position. The room erupted. Taehyung felt fear and adrenaline collide in his chest, but he didn't shrink. For the first time, he was fighting. And as the cameras rolled, capturing not a scandal but a reckoning, Taehyung realized something irreversible had happened. They had tried to expose him. Instead, they had awakened him. The backlash didn't soften after the press room. It sharpened. Taehyung felt it the moment the car door shut behind him, sealing in the echo of his own heartbeat. The city blurred past the tinted windows, neon and rain bleeding together, but inside the vehicle everything felt too still. His palms were damp. His throat burned from holding his voice steady under fire. Across from him, Jungkook sat hunched forward, elbows on his knees, fingers laced so tightly the tendons stood out beneath his skin. "That reporter," Jungkook said quietly, "the one who laughed." Taehyung nodded. "He wanted me to beg." Jungkook looked up then, eyes dark. "You didn't." "No," Taehyung said. "I won't ever again." The car pulled away, sirens faint in the distance. Outside, clips were already circulating, his words isolated. Jungkook's expression slowed, zoomed, reinterpreted. New weapons forged from old sentences. Back at the building, the atmosphere was brittle. Phones rang without pause. Staff whispered behind glass walls. Screens replayed the press conference on mute, subtitles flashing like accusations. His manager intercepted them immediately. "You escalated this," she said. "They escalated it when they sold our privacy," Taehyung replied. She exhaled sharply. "Sponsors are calling, some are pulling out." Jungkook stiffened. "Because of me." "Because of the narrative," she corrected. "You two together are a liability in their eyes." Something inside Taehyung snapped. Not loudly, not dramatically, but cleanly. "Then let them go," he said. She blinked. "What?" "I won't trade my dignity for contracts," Taehyung continued. His voice trembled, but he didn't stop. "If they only want me silent and small, I don't want them." Silence crashed down. Jungkook watched him like he had just stepped into fire without flinching. "You don't have to burn everything down," Jungkook said. "I'm not," Taehyung replied. "I'm clearing the smoke." Later, alone in a quiet conference room, the weight finally caught up to him. Taehyung curled into a chair, arms wrapped around himself, breathing shallow. The adrenaline drained, leaving exhaustion and fear in its wake. Jungkook stood by the window, city lights flickering on like distant signals. "I keep thinking about that recording," Jungkook said softly, "about how safe I felt then." Taehyung swallowed. "Me too. I hate that they turned it into something ugly." He lifted his head. "It wasn't ugly, it was us." Jungkook turned, eyes shining. "That's what scares them." Taehyung's phone buzzed on the table. "Unknown number." "You wanted attention. You got it." Another message followed, a photo attached. A grainy image of Taehyung entering the studio months ago, timestamps circled in red. His stomach dropped. Jungkook saw his face drain of color. "What is it?" "They're still watching," Taehyung whispered. "Whoever leaked the audio, they're not done." Anger flared in Jungkook's chest. "This stops now." "How?" Taehyung asked. "By dragging the truth into the light," Jungkook said. "All of it." Taehyung shook his head. "That could destroy you." Jungkook stepped closer. "I'm already cracked." Their eyes locked, tension trembling between them. "I don't want to be the reason," Taehyung began. "You're not," Jungkook cut in fierce. "You're the reason I remember why I started making music in the first place." Taehyung's breath hitched. "Don't say things like that unless you mean them." "I mean them," Jungkook said, "every word." The door burst open. His manager rushed in, face pale. "It's worse." They both turned. "The leaker contacted a media outlet," she said. "They're threatening to release more unless you retract your statements and apologize." Taehyung let out a sharp, broken laugh. "Apologize for existing." Jungkook's expression hardened. "We don't negotiate with extortion." She hesitated. "If they release more, it could get deeply personal." Taehyung straightened. Fear pulsed through him, but beneath it was something steadier now. "Then we beat them to it," he said. Jungkook looked at him. "What do you mean?" "I tell my story," Taehyung replied. "All of it before they twist it." "That's dangerous," the manager warned. "So is silence," Taehyung said. "And I'm done letting fear decide for me." Jungkook reached for his hand. hesitating only a second before intertwining their fingers. The contact grounded him instantly. "If you do this," Jungkook said quietly, "I stand with you, no matter the fallout." "I know," Taehyung said. Night fell heavy and close. Taehyung sat alone in a recording room, the same space that once held laughter now echoing with accusation. The lights were dim, casting long shadows across the soundboard. He traced the edge of the table, grounding himself in the familiar texture. This was where he would speak. Not through a label, not through a headline. With his own voice. The door opened softly. "You don't have to do this tonight," Jungkook said. "If I wait, fear will talk me out of it," Taehyung replied. "They're waiting for you to crack." Taehyung looked at him, eyes red but steady. "Then they'll be disappointed." He pressed the record button. The red light blinked on. "My name is Kim Taehyung," he began, "and I am not a scandal." The words came slowly at first, then faster. He spoke about boundaries violated in the name of curiosity, about being reduced to a rumor instead of recognized as a person, about how intimacy, when stolen, becomes violence. Outside the room, his manager listened, arms crossed, jaw tight. She wanted to stop it, to protect him from himself, but something in his voice held her still. Inside, Jungkook leaned against the wall, eyes closed. Every word cut and healed at once. Taehyung didn't name the leaker. He didn't need to. He described betrayal without spectacle, fear without shame. "I refuse to apologize for being human," he said, "and I refuse to be silent to make others comfortable." When he finished, the room felt emptied of air. He turned off the recorder and exhaled shakily. Jungkook crossed the space between them and pulled him into his arms before he could stop himself. Taehyung stiffened for half a second, then collapsed into him, the weight finally finding somewhere to rest. "You were incredible," Jungkook murmured. "I'm terrified," Taehyung admitted. "Me too," Jungkook said, "but I've never been more proud." The audio went live an hour later. The reaction was immediate and explosive. Some called it reckless, others called it historic. Survivors shared their own stories in waves. Industry insiders went silent. Then a few began to speak, cautiously, admitting that leaks and coercion were open secrets no one wanted to confront. Then came the twist no one expected. An official statement surfaced. Not from gossip forums, not from anonymous threads, but from a junior producer who had worked late nights in the same building. He named the leaker. A senior figure, respected, protected. The industry trembled. Lawyers scrambled. Statements were drafted, erased, rewritten. Taehyung watched it unfold from the same couch, where he had once hidden from the noise. This time he didn't flinch. "They're trying to contain it," his manager said. "Call it an isolated incident." "It never is," Taehyung replied. Jungkook's phone buzzed. He read the message, then looked up. "They want me to disavow your statement." Taehyung's chest tightened. "You don't have to." "I won't," Jungkook said immediately. "I already told them no." His manager stopped packing. "You understand what that means?" Jungkook nodded. "It means I stopped pretending safety comes from silence." Taehyung met his gaze. Outside, the city roared, hungry, relentless. Inside, something irreversible had taken shape. Not just a scandal. A reckoning. The fallout didn't arrive all at once. It came in waves. First, the silence. Studios that once buzzed with constant activity went eerily quiet. Meetings were postponed. Calls went unanswered. Names that had dominated headlines vanished overnight, as if erased by an invisible hand desperate to minimize damage. Taehyung noticed it immediately. The absence was louder than the outrage. He sat alone in the living room of the temporary residence, the curtains open this time, daylight pouring in without obstruction. For days, he had measured time by notifications and crisis calls. Now, there was space between moments. It felt unfamiliar. Jungkook entered quietly, carrying 2 cups of coffee. He handed one to Taehyung without speaking and sat beside him, shoulders brushing. The contact was simple, grounding. "They're restructuring," Jungkook said finally, "internally." Taehyung nodded. "They always do, rearrange the furniture, pretend the house wasn't burning." Jungkook watched him carefully. "How do you feel?" Taehyung considered the question, the real one beneath it. "I feel awake," he said, "and exhausted and scared but not ashamed." Jungkook let out a breath he'd been holding. Good. News broke later that afternoon. The senior figure named by the producer had been placed on indefinite leave pending investigation. Statements followed, carefully worded, painfully vague. Apologies that never quite reached the people who had been harmed. Still, it was something. The internet reacted in fragments. Celebration tangled with skepticism. Survivors shared stories. Others accused Taehyung of exaggeration, of opportunism, of destroying careers for attention. He read fewer comments now, not because they stopped, but because he finally understood he didn't owe them his peace. His manager joined them that evening, her posture different than before, less defensive, more human. "You changed the conversation," she admitted, "whether they like it or not." Taehyung looked at her. "I didn't plan to." "No," she said, "that's why it worked." She hesitated. "There will be consequences, long-term ones." "I know," Taehyung replied. Jungkook reached for his hand under the table, a quiet promise. The first real walk outside happened days later. No disguises, no back exits. Just Taehyung, Jungkook, and a small security detail keeping respectful distance. Cameras appeared, of course, they always did, but something had shifted. The shouting was gone, replaced by murmurs, curiosity instead of accusation. Someone called out, "Are you okay?" Taehyung stopped. The security team tensed, ready to move him along, but he raised a hand gently. He turned toward the voice. "I'm learning to be," he said. It wasn't a headline-ready quote. It wasn't dramatic. It was honest. That night, alone again, Taehyung returned to the window where this had all begun. The city stretched beneath him, endless and indifferent, yet filled with people living their own quiet battles. He thought about the airport. The flashes, the frozen moment when his body refused to move, the feeling that his life had slipped out of his control. He understood now that freezing hadn't been weakness. It had been the pause before choosing who he would become next. His phone buzzed softly. A message from a fan. "You helped me speak when I thought I never could. Thank you for surviving." Taehyung closed his eyes, throat tightening. Jungkook came to stand beside him. "They'll keep watching us," Jungkook said, analyzing, waiting for the next crack. Taehyung nodded. "Let them." He turned to Jungkook, expression calm in a way it had never been before. "I can't promise this will be easy," Taehyung said. Jungkook smiled faintly. "I don't need easy." They stood there together, not performing, not hiding, just existing in the aftermath of a truth that had changed them both. The world would keep arguing, headlines would evolve, new scandals would replace old ones. But something fundamental had shifted. Taehyung was no longer stunned under the cameras. He was standing, not because the storm had passed, but because he had learned he didn't need to disappear inside it. And that quietly was the most dangerous thing of all.